This is the Hunt Quietly podcast. I'm Matt Ranella.
I'm doing what I always tell people not to do, which is going into this cold. Like, I haven't thought about this for a long time, which could be entertaining.
Yeah, there's certain people that I have some success just jumping on with and just letting it go where it goes. You know, it's funny, like the episodes that I'm most proud of the podcast are ones where we did a bunch of research, but then I go and look and they don't get listened to more than ones where we don't.
You know, there's such irony with so much of the content these days and what works and what doesn't. Because I agree with you. Again, I do a lot of video and I can take just weeks, months, years painstakingly getting everything just right, and nobody looks at it. And then you post something that's just thrown up and everybody's watching it and wants to see it. So who knows what the right answer is.
What is the video for?
Well, I mean, I do a lot of videos. I as of late, I haven't been doing nearly as many, but one project that I have completed since we last talked, which, by the way, I had to look back. How many episodes do you have now of the podcast?
I've conducted 140 some recorded conversations since we last talked. I too had to look. It was 2.5 years. It was 2.5 years ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago. So since then, I did I developed a introduction to upland bird hunting series, which is a video series free of charge for anybody who is interested in getting into upland bird hunting, where we went around the country and filmed stories around 5 different hunters who were sort of non-traditionals and talked about their stories, and then provided foundational instruction on everything from firearms to dogs and other things that are important in learning to hunt upland birds.
So you video that and put it on your Instagram channel? So
that actually, and I was just looking through your posts as of late and who you're taking on. I won't say who, but there is a nonprofit conservation group who is involved with that, and so and they own it now, and so they're using it to attract upland hunters. Oh,
they own. You started this and Turkey Federation took it over.
Not Turkey Federation.
Oh, no. Okay. Then everybody that listens to this podcast knows who it is, because it had to be them or the other one.
Right, exactly. So,
what did you think of that turkey stuff?
You know what? I did not get a chance to listen to it, so that's okay. I just saw you just posted it 2 days ago, right? Yeah. So, give me the high level gist of it. Even though
did you look at our Instagram?
No, I was. Well, okay. I saw your post as of late, but no, I did not see it. So apologies.
So we looked into them for months, and when I first started looking into them, I just wanted to know how much R3 they did. It's funny talking to you because I get along great with you, but we are on totally different sides of the hunter recruit, hunter recruitment thing. And some things started to jump out at me as being rather strange. And the first one was, they claim that they only spend $1.2 million on fundraising.
Yeah.
And they make $59 million a year. And, I think it's critically important that the money, the hard-earned money that the American people give to these organizations is used judiciously, because there's only so many dollars Americans are willing to voluntarily part with in the name of conservation.
Absolutely.
And they use that 1.2 million in their outreach, because all these organizations want to show that they don't spend anything on salaries.
Did
And
you look at their 990 or did you do other sleuthing?
no, I looked at their financial documents.
Yeah,
They spend something like they spend $8.5 million a year just on banquet merchandise.
Doesn't
And
surprise me.
and that money is paradigmatically fundraising money. I mean, I interacted with them and I said, and they told me they raffle that off, that merchandise off and auction it off at their banquets with
Yep.
proceeds going to Turkey Foundation,
Yep.
Turkey Federation.
Yep.
I can have the hardest time remembering the name of that organization, even though I've been talking about them so much. So it's like, how in the world is that not included in their? It's like, what I keep saying is, it's like going on vacation and somebody asks you how much you spent. You leave off the airfare in the motel.
Yeah. 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 I don't know how, in terms of, if that organization is a 501c3
They
or
are.
okay. Um, the impact of changing that out. But like you said, I mean, there's always, whether it's nonprofits or corporations, there's always a bit of playing around with which category you put dollars in to make it look most favorable for you. But obviously, the IRS has pretty strict guidelines on what that is. But I've never done anything officially with those guys.
Oh,
You know,
that's just the tip of the iceberg,
well, I
Mark.
remember years ago they said they created, I want to say in 1 year or a few years, they created 1 million new hunters, which I thought was rather interesting.
Oh, they claimed 1.5 million from 2012 to 2022.
Yeah.
Now, how you run the counterfactuals on that, I can't even begin to imagine. How can you say that somebody that is hunting that and they otherwise wouldn't be? How do you even verify they're still hunting?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fuzzy math, as
Oh,
George W. Bush would say.
it's just absolutely cannot be in any way substantiated, but some things can, and like their acres conserved, uh, um, data can be can be substantiated, and it's not. Like, we found so much stuff there. First of all, they have corrected their website in because of us finding stuff that was problematic. They have a tab in their by the numbers page that has acres by state and of conserved acres by state. Well, we're looking through this stuff. We're talking about hundreds of projects, and we start seeing the same verbiage associated with the same acreage number, like prescribed burn and timber clearing or thinning, and the exact same verbiage with the exact same acreage number in multiple states tabs. And we called them out on it. And some of their states, the acres conserved dropped dramatically. Maine, for example, went from 60,000 acres to 60 acres.
Wow.
And there's lots of other problems that are still on their website. Every page has a total acres in big, full, bold font and at the top, and then individual projects. And with all 50 states, if you sum up the individual projects, they don't come anywhere close to the total that they put at the top. And in my mind, it's like, what could be more important than documenting what you're doing towards your mission.
Yeah. I mean, if there are straight up fabrications of work, that is obviously troubling. The one thing I would say that happens oftentimes, I think, with these nonprofits and a lot of the different conservation work and a lot of different projects, I think it probably goes across a lot of things, which is their partnerships between NGOs and government entities. And I think a lot of times they all claim rights to those results. And so there's multiple organizations claiming a project that they were involved with, as an example, acreage conserved. But there are, let's say it's 1,000 acres that something was done on, but there were 6 to 10 different entities involved with that. Each of them would be claiming 1,000 acres conserved. You couldn't add those up across organizations. But, if that organization was involved with a project, I guess they would have certain rights to claim it if they were involved with it.
Well, okay, I don't think I'm being clear. I'm saying that I go to the Indiana tab, and there's a project listed there for 30,000 acres, and there's a write-up describing the project. And then I go over to the Illinois tab.
Oh, like in detail of the project, and it's literally a copy and paste?
Words.
Ooh, wow.
With the same acreage.
Wow.
And
wow.
they did a mea culpa. They fixed that. So they admitted it was wrong. But still, right now, you can go on their website, and this other problem that I just described persists, where the sum of the individual projects comes nowhere near matching the total. Now, another problem is that they in some passages in their website take full credit for the acres that they've opened up of access and the acres they've conserved. And we had a team of 5 people call about these projects, like projects that took place in such and such national forest and such state wildlife management area, and discovered that in some cases they did a minor fraction of the work.
Yeah.
And but they don't. There's passages on their website where they take 100%.
Yeah, and that's definitely, like, I would say, certain organizations might just do the paperwork and transferring of ownership through some type of an easement, and then claim credit for it. And yeah, that's a bit suspect, probably, if they're claiming 100% credit when they were just a piece of the full puzzle. But
another thing they do that's exceptionally is misleading is when they're with their projects, goes line by line. Prescribed fire, seeding project, weed control, et cetera, et cetera. And in a lot of the projects, it's a place in the first column. It's project name, and it'll be place. And then you'll get to Jim Seed Company, such and such implement dealer, such and such contractor, this, that, business names. It goes from place names to business names. And I was pretty highly suspicious that all that work takes place on private land. And they don't want to say Bob's Farm or the Crossbucks Ranch. So when it comes to one that's on private land, and there's tons and tons of them, they just put the name of a business that they cooperated with.
Mm.
That they and I asked them about that. They wouldn't even respond. It's like, how is that not something that you report? How much of your work can be enjoyed by your members directly?
Yeah. Now it's a good question.
So that's like when we were talking about ones I'm real proud of.
Yeah.
That don't get many listens. That one I'm proud of, and the other one I'm proud of is one we did that we put out a few weeks ago about farm subsidies.
Okay.
Because I believe, and others people in my little group believe, that with all the public money that's spent on agricultural enterprises, there should be access strings associated.
Yeah, I would agree. And there's, obviously some good programs already in place to do that. But I think any hunter would say, yeah, there should be more. So I think that's good. You're having that conversation. So are you still? I went back and I listened to a few minutes of our recording from 2.5-3 years ago, episode number 4 of yours.
Yeah.
And you talked about, and you opened it up with saying that you and I have a different threat assessment on the future of hunting.
Yeah. That's good. That's good, man. As a fledgling podcaster, that was a pretty good way to start out.
Exactly, man. You nailed it.
So
is it the same? Have you changed your? Because I think it was May of 2022 when it came out. So we probably recorded it about 3 years ago. Depending upon how much time it took to get out, but you get yours out more quickly than I do. But what has changed on your threat assessment relative to R3 versus? Sounds like you've evolved to focusing as much on conservation and other things like that.
Well, I think the focus has kind of stayed the same. It's just I've always, not always, ever since I was on the board of BHA, I've been suspicious of hunting nonprofits. So what I just described is born out of that suspicion. But then the farm subsidies one is born out of a concern for the future of public access. And since we last talked, I started a nonprofit with some friends that's grown to other states now, where we try to support these state-run programs, access programs, like
Hunters for Access. That was that.
Yeah,
I looked it up.
Yeah.
I see we have one here in Minnesota.
Yes, you do.
Hey, all right.
Yeah.
Who do you have running that here in Minnesota? Is there a person?
His name is Evan Curtin.
Okay.
And you could get to know him if you listen to a few of our episodes, because he's on quite a bit.
I need to do that.
He's on the farm subsidy one, and he's also on the turkey one. So
okay.
Yeah. So yeah, the threat assessment. So I look at that. I guess, what would I say about that? Okay, I'm terrible predicting the future. So here's what I'm kind of going to demur in answering just a bit.
Okay.
I could see that the things that concern me most turn out to be the biggest concerns. And I'm the only one working on them.
Yeah.
I am the hunt quality person in the hunting sphere. Everybody else in the hunting sphere is actively working to reduce hunt quality, except me.
Do you think you would say that about the conservation groups who are working to restore and conserve land?
Well,
Put
they're
set it
also
aside.
well, they may or may not be successful in getting any of that done, but they sure as hell have provided a mechanism for crowding people out. Like if the conservation orgs were really concerned about hunt quality, they'd come out strongly against hunting media.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I mean, you and I talked about that again 2.5 years ago, and we were in agreement in many respects on the aspect of commerce and media when it comes to the outdoors and hunting.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
say that as somebody who's part of, the system. I mean, even you have a hunting podcast, uh, and so it's we're part of it. But I agree. I mean, the idea of you talked about, killing for likes or killing for clicks. Absolutely. That's an aspect that is very dangerous. And I think anytime there is a profit motive in place, we're in a very precarious place, and that's why things like the Lacey Act came about.
yeah. Uh, so I guess that's why I feel comfortable working on what I work on is because I'm the only one. I am the only one doing it.
Well, I appreciate that, and I think it's
Uh,
good. We need your voice. We need your voice out there.
uh, well, thank you. I, I appreciate the encouragement. Now, I'm increasingly concerned about the selling off of the public lands. That seems to be like something that comes around. I just had Land Tawney on the podcast, and he was saying that seems to be like a 7-year cycle. It comes back every.
Yeah, yeah. 7-year itch.
Yeah. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if 7 years is right. Land
I
would
mean,
know
he just
better.
threw that figure
Yeah,
out
yeah. But
loosely,
it, it generally, yes. I mean, you look at in terms of what's going on in Utah with Mike Lee. I remember it was probably about 7 years ago, well, last time we were talking about Mike Lee and some of the things he was doing out in Idaho or Utah. Utah, I think, right?
Utah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, I think right now that is a big, if you want to do a threat assessment right now, today, here, that is a big one, and I think what is disconcerting is with all of these firings of federal employees, there's certain areas, sure, where we need tightening. There are other areas where they were skinny resources already, and now if we've eliminated certain people in critical positions around management of federal lands, yeah, that's things are at risk.
Uh, so this is a question I posed to Land. I'd be interested to get your take on it. What motivates these politicians, like, to want to sell off public lands? It, let, let me flesh that out just a little bit before you answer. I, I mean, why do they have this missionary zeal for that? It doesn't poll well. The majority of Americans are opposed to it. So, like, is it that their granddaddy told them when they were a little kid that all land should be private, and it's just like a religious belief to them? Like, where does it come from?
I mean, I don't know. You'd have to ask them. My guess along those lines, I mean, I think the scenario of, yeah, daddy told him that was the way it should be. Yeah, there could be some of that. I think there's probably a combination of, I'll give them a benefit of the doubt of a fundamental belief that federal government should be as small as possible, and the locus of control should be as near me as possible in my local ideas, because I love where I live and I know that we can make better decisions than those those idiotic federalists, and so I think maybe there's a philosophical belief that local control is better on anything and everything, because then I can control it more if I'm a politician. And then the other, I think, is ignorance. And I would say any good outdoors person worth their salt who understands the value of massive tracts of wild lands would get it and understand that that can only be done in a federal model, in a national model, that once you bring it to the local level, it's just not a sustainable state, and there's going to be too many other factors that come into play that'll it'll be out of control, and next thing you know, it'll be sold off.
The other, yeah, and I mean, you said they're ignorant of what it takes to manage the property at that kind of land at a state level, and the other one I always hear is that it's not ignorance, it's calculated, and that they know that once it's in the hands of the state, then they can sell it off.
Yeah, no,
absolutely. But what does the politician get from it? It's not like he gets to sell it off and keep the proceeds.
I mean, right now my level of feelings towards any politician is so low. And I think politics is like business in any of this stuff, and it comes down to either greed, power, or power with that, and sometimes together those go together. And I think if they're able to exercise control, they probably have people whispering in their ear that, hey, you get this local control, we're all going to benefit. And so, what that is, I'm sure it could be 100 different things, but
I think it would have terrible implications for human health.
Absolutely. 100% agree. I mean, right now, it's hard enough. You look at a map of the U.S., look at the development over the last 100 years that has been made in, you look in the Midwest here, Minnesota, we've got 90% of our wetlands gone. We've got 95% of our prairie gone from where it was 100 years ago. I mean, that's a massive change of landscape, and that means it's harder and harder for people to connect in ways that are truly wild. Of whatever type of landscape you prefer, whether it's prairie or north woods or the mountains or the rivers and lakes, but I believe it's critically important for our mental and spiritual health to be connected to the land and the water.
I would agree with you for that's true for some of us, but I don't think it's true for all of us. So I think it has if we sold off the public lands, the people that need to commune with nature are going to suffer. Their mental health is going to suffer. But then there's a lot of like high functioning, flourishing people that live their whole life never out of sight of a building.
And they can flourish in a superficial, artificial environment. But I would argue that their experience in life isn't nearly as rich as it could be if they had connected to the natural world in other ways. So I think I personally believe it's a universal need for humans, because it is in our DNA for millennia of being connected, and it's only in this very short period of time where we've disconnected ourselves from it. And you look at all the health maladies, all the mental maladies that exist today. I mean, we have mental health crisis going on. We have a crisis of obesity, of heart disease, of cancer, et cetera, et cetera. Now, you could argue it's all of the things we have impacting, all of the things we've created artificially that are affecting that. But I think tied in with it also is a lack of connection with nature, which I think has many, many known and yet to be known benefits.
Oh man, you might be right. you might be right, but I just kind of maintain a healthy skepticism about that thesis. That'd be something we should have a panel debate over.
I
We
agree.
could
I like
debate
it.
the it's I would be arguing for the motion that you can have a fulfilled, flourishing, enriching, complete life, never communing with nature. I think I would. My first case, my first point in case would be Immanuel Kant.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
philosopher.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember reading them in college, but it's been a
Yeah,
long
he
time.
he spent his whole life in Kyrgyzstan. I don't know if he ever left, and he took a walk every day around the town. People
Yeah.
used to say you could set your watch by when he walked by. It was so regimented, you know. So here's a guy that like people. I mean, he just had a tremendous impact on Western thought. And hey, but I mean, your retort might be something like that, but like might be like, well, yeah, but just think how much happier and more fulfilled and effective he would have been.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you take a very specific example of a topic. I forget if we discussed this last time we talked, but um, the philosophical difference here would be: do you need nature to live a fulfilling life? Right. That maybe that's the question of the discussion of the debate. And I would say, it would probably be more moderate. Therefore, I'd have to take an extreme view to have some fun with it. But take the aspect of synthetic meat, which is, there's a industry that's trying to get started around it. There's all kinds of startups doing this. Not, and I'm not talking plant-based versions of meat like the burgers that are just plant-based. I'm talking about artificially creating from stem cells meat in a lab.
Yeah.
And I would argue that's a great example of an extreme of where, okay, in the future, we've convinced ourselves that we can be completely disconnected from nature, including we can get all of our protein in the lab down the way, and we can live in our glass box, and we never have to touch the filthy dirt again, or get potentially, impacted by viruses or bacteria out on that horrible earthly landscape. Um, I don't think that's good. And so, I mean, I think a version in between, I don't think you would have a fulfilling life. And I think the further we get disconnected from nature, the more risk we are at not only personal problems, but societal problems.
Um. Yeah, I'm open to that. I'm open to that being the case. The lab grown meat thing. What if it Okay, so this wasn't your argument at all. It could be that constitutively it's identical to, right. So let's say they get it that good
Well, and
that
I think that's
at the
where it's
atop
at
yeah,
already.
like at
Yeah.
the atomic level
Yeah.
there's no difference, but that the environmental footprint was lower. I mean, the
Hmm.
feed conversion on that is going to be, I mean, it's still, those cells are still growing on the same basic ingredients like
Yeah.
starch and protein from corn and soybeans. Maybe, I don't know, you could have maybe, I don't know, you could have a maybe a better natural world. You wouldn't have the environmental degradation associated with confined feeding operations, and you'd have lower feed conversion, meaning pounds of corn and soybeans per pound of meat.
No, absolutely. I believe me, I've had long debates over this topic. My
Oh,
nephew,
really?
yeah, my
Oh,
nephew, who is the Stanford law grad, completely disagrees with me on it. He believes it's necessary for the future, and I don't disagree that exactly like you said, the equation of the resource in versus the benefit out, the food product out, would be so much more effective versus the confined animal feed operations. Um, but once we go to that level, think about this, think about the future of hunting and the support for hunting when somebody can tell you, Matt, why would you kill an animal? There's no need to do it anymore. There's
Oh,
no need to kill an animal anymore and cause suffering because you are causing suffering, and therefore that is a problem. You could just go get the lab grown meat and we're all good.
I just think of hunting as so much less important than how we feed ourselves going forward. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Because just so few people feed themselves even like a tiny fraction of their caloric intake is from game. Another thing you could tell your Stanford, what would you say, relative
My nephew. Yeah.
nephew, is that there's a lot you'd be giving up a lot of if you went fully to lab grown meat, you'd be giving up a lot of grass, rangelands that could be used for meat production.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
the only reason that beef production is at all competitive with chicken, because
Mm.
chicken has such a higher uh, feed conversion,
Yeah.
but you get kind of a free lunch for until the steers are weaned because they're out on natural grasslands.
Okay. Yeah.
So you get that part for free, well, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like
Yep.
nothing else is going to be done with that grass if it's not
Yeah.
being used by cattle and wildlife.
Grazing public land and private land.
And private land. Yeah. You think about landlocked uh public land much?
I do. It's not as much of a Midwest issue. Obviously, it's more of a Western issue. But yeah, I mean the lawsuit I don't know if it's a lawsuit, but the amicus brief that BHA issued a few years ago regarding the 400s in Wyoming and trying to set that precedent. I think it's an important thing that we should be looking at ways to raise that issue and look at opportunities for how we could open those up, because right now, there are those cases of where you have people just using them as their private space.
Yeah. One 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 of the many immensely illuminating things you'll learn when you listen to our farm subsidies episode is
And I will be listening to them.
is we do a bunch of calculations in there. So there are I wish I could remember how many acres of landlocked land there are.
Oh, yeah.
It's 16 million, I think. I
Is
think
it
it's
that much?
yeah, I think it's
Wow.
16 million.
Wow.
So check this out. Do you know, you probably don't, I'd be very impressed if you knew what egg producers pay per AUM
Mm.
on those lands
Mm.
and for per animal unit month.
Per animal unit
That's the
month
amount of forage it requires to feed a cow and its calf for a month.
for a month. What they pay?
Mm-hmm.
$5, $20,
$1.35.
$1.35.
Yeah, and it's on the okay. According to a congressional report that came out in 2017, this is according to Congress, not according to Matt Ranella. That grass is worth $19.50 an AUM. So if we the people charged what that fair market value for that grass, we would make enough money, I figured, but I figured this out by looking at what leased hunting land costs in the Western US.
Yeah.
We would have enough money to lease 16 million acres worth of land, which is the amount of acres that's
yeah, I mean
landlocked.
those are the types of things that, again, good for you, like looking into that, into those factors of where, we hear so many times, um, other stories about how, people are not getting a good deal, or they're overpaying, or they're not getting access. But I mean, a 19-to-1 differential on fair market versus actually what's being paid. Um, you know, we as taxpayers, as public landowners, as they say, should be outraged by that, and should demand that things are put in place to get that closer to fair market value.
Yeah. Yeah. Or keep it cheap and just give us access to our
Yeah,
lands.
well, there you go. There you go. There's the options, and now you got carrot and stick, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Um, yeah, just it does seem like I don't know. Like I say, there's a case to be made for public access for public money. There's just certain things in life that I just don't understand how they ended up getting the way they are.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. Well, I think over time they just evolve and change, and when people aren't raising a stink about it, things happen.
Yeah, yeah.
So, do you still believe that strongly that R3 efforts across the country by conservation groups and states are manufacturing interest in hunting that shouldn't be manufactured?
Uh, yeah. That belief has, if anything, only intensified. I mean, what I didn't know now, what I didn't know last time we talked that I know now is that there's more hunters in the U.S. than there has been at any point in the history of the country, except from a 10-year period spanning 1975 to 1985, when there was way more land available for hunting.
Hmm.
And this is according to both sources of data on the topic. The Fish and Wildlife Service reports that come out every 5 years. The most recent one substantiates what I just said. And then hunting license data also substantiate what I just said. So the argument for years that like the motivation for hunter recruitment, as I understood it, was that we were hemorrhaging hunters, and but that must not have been it, because now that it's clear that we're not, if anything, a lot of these orgs are doing more R3 than ever.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, there is, as we talked about last time, when I started Modern Carnivore, R3 didn't exist. Um, and so I've seen this evolve and change over time. All the different things that groups are doing, whether it's state agencies, nonprofits, or what have you. And I think there's different motivations for each one. A lot of times nonprofits want to have a good story about the good that they're doing. Um, State agencies are looking at the loss of license revenue and wanting to try to reverse that trend. Um, and we could argue the data points all day long of whether there's more or less percentage of population, et cetera, et cetera. From
Wait,
my okay,
what can we? Where is it not clear? Like,
so
oh, hunters is a percentage of the
yeah,
population.
as a percentage of the
I
population,
don't,
right?
but that
Exactly.
that doesn't have anything to do with what the resource can support.
No,
The
absolutely.
deer and the deer and the hunters don't care about the divisor. Like, they don't care how many people are at home sitting on their couch.
Yeah.
As
No,
a matter of, if anything, the more people you have that aren't hunting, the less hunters you can support, right?
yeah.
Because all
I
those
mean,
people need a place to live and all that.
Absolutely. I mean, population growth, resource limitations, development. I mean, there are so many factors at play here, and absolutely, from the standpoint of overcrowding. Here's the thing, where you live, where you hunt, is ground zero when it comes to overcrowding, and there are
Well,
certain.
don't you think the Midwest,
No, I mean, I
like
here's
Iowa?
yeah, I mean, there's certain areas and certain activities that there are, but I mean, I deer hunt in a very popular area. I haven't seen any just pure anecdotal. That's what everybody always has their anecdotal scenarios of either I'm seeing a ton more or I'm not seeing a ton more or what have you. I don't see a ton more. Um, Deer hunting, I do see a lot more. Grouse hunting, I think there's certain media outlets that have done a very good job of attracting upland hunters to Minnesota to chase ruffed grouse. I think there are other media outlets that did a very good job 7 to 10 years ago to drive elk hunters into your country, and I think you have those hot spots for certain species that you see these massive influx. We've also got changing technologies when it comes to fishing, the fishing resource. Ice fishing in Minnesota used to be sitting on a bucket with a jig stick. Now people have palaces there that's called palace, or it's called a castle that you put out on the ice, and you could live out there for a month if you wanted, in perfectly climate controlled environment and catch all the fish you want. And so, there's just so many factors at play. I guess the way I look at it from the standpoint of my work is that for those who have a natural curiosity and interest in hunting, which is the people who come into our programs, because they want to be connected to nature, they want to experience something that they haven't experienced before, we're providing the wherewithal to learn and get indoctrinated into the education, awareness, and understanding of what it means to respectfully chase animals and fish and to forage for mushrooms, et cetera, and get connected with nature. And I would say that these people who participate in those activities would be the first to say, hey, again, knowing these people and their mentality, this sort of this next generation coming up, of of they would be the people to say, hey, if that resource is getting pressured, tell me to back off. And so now it comes down to our state agencies to manage that resource effectively and to set those bag limits and or license access points at the level that makes sense for the resource. Um, and we need to make sure that that North American model continues in an effective way, and it doesn't get politicized, and it doesn't get unduly changed to due to greed, power, or other inappropriate influence.
Uh, okay, yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. First, I mean, it's you talk about these people having a natural curiosity. I think a lot of it's born out of media. They probably watch Meat Eater, and then they come and want to learn how to
What's
hunt.
what's Meat Eater?
Um, uh, Another thing is like the part about leaving it up to the fish and game management agencies to figure out how to tighten the regulations is what we're talking about. We got to tighten the regulations, hunt less because there's more people wanting it. To me, it just makes much more sense to like control the demand by doing away with hunting promotion. Yeah. So I mean, it just seems way less painful. Like, we're going to make it so here's what we're going to do. We're going to keep doing hunting promotion and hunting YouTube and hunting Instagram and Sportsman's Channel and all this and make everybody want to do it. But here's how we'll manage that. We'll just tighten it so that you can only go out and shoot a deer every 3 years. To me, it's like, why not just reduce the demand?
What? So how would you propose? So are you proposing that we outlaw media promotion of any sort related to outdoor pursuits?
No. No, I
What's
have
so what's the
no interest in trying to pass laws. Mine is a heartfelt plea to the hunting community to stop consuming hunting content.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And how and I guess you know to me that's an implausible request. Um because it's telling people it's like telling people don't drink sugary pop because it'll widen your waistline.
Well, I mean, we had a non-smoking campaign, and it worked pretty effectively. Just a small
Yeah.
fraction of the number of people used to smoke. So we also had a campaign in the '90s to try to persuade hunters from putting dead deer on their hoods, and that wasn't a law. That was just like it was in magazines and hunting regs that they just recommended against it, and that went down.
But I think
I
let
think
me let me ask you
if
this though, is there
people, I don't consume hunting media. It's not a sugary
I don't
beverage to
either.
me.
I
It's like
don't either.
to me, it's just like it was a ridiculous, stupid waste of time.
I never have been in my entire life. When fishing shows and came on in the 80s, and I was just recorded a podcast last week with Mike Hayner, who is a producer, cameraman for Lindner Media Group, one of the biggest fishing media companies. I've watched very, very little, if any, of outdoor media content. I'd rather be out there myself now, but some people like to watch it. And I think it's hard to I think it's hard, especially in the United States of America, to restrict
I'm not
viewing.
trying to restrict
Yeah.
anybody.
No, 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 no,
I,
no, no. Yeah.
I
So, but
just to
to
be
even
clear,
but
I,
even to promote saying don't do it. Yeah, I think it's different from fundamental guidance of, like you said, the smoking. Smoking is such a one-off though, and that took what, billions, if not trillions of dollars to make happen. And it had a very compelling health, societal health impact that could be quantified and qualified. And so I think it's just, it would be hard to find another example of shifting cultural um, approval and participation. And, it's sort of like, you gave an example when we talked last time about sort of a hunting porn illustration of how some of the, I think it's gone away now, but I think back then and prior to that there was a lot of posting of combining hunting with sexual imagery, which was really odd, very odd. um and so and I think that came out of people saying, people are attracted to both of these, and oftentimes it's the same person, so we'll mix them together. But I think it's just hard to convince people to not watch something.
no, I agree, and I've said from the get-go that there's a 99% chance that I'm not going to be successful in this. But what I'm trying to do is direct my efforts to what it would take to save quality hunting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We're not even it's not even save in a lot of the country.
Yeah.
In a lot of the country, it's to restore what it would take to restore quality hunting. And what it would take would take a, a, a boycott of hunting media.
Mm-hmm.
When
What?
I look, when I when I strain my brain as much as I can, when I focus and think about and put as much thought, consideration as I can into what would the hunting picture be like in this country right now had we just stuck to a couple magazines. I think it would be
Field and Forest?
way, way better access, way fewer people hunting for external reasons, fame and money and likes. I just, the whole hunting ecosphere appears different to me had we done that. So I just look at everybody that's in hunting promotion as being the cause of it. And you're not like somebody, like, you don't make your money by being a hunting celebrity that everybody looks to for like as a hero type person.
Right.
But these people that
do you know anybody that's like
oh
that?
yeah, for sure, my brother and many others. But I mean, those people caused it. The people that we idolize are the ones that have so severely compromised hunting in this country, in my view.
I think
So
it's
it's
I think
worth
it's hard to
saying.
I mean, I think it's hard to blame just the media. I think it is absolutely a contributing factor in a lot of good and bad. I think it's raised awareness of a lot of good things, and I think it's done a lot of harm also. And in the process, it's entertained a lot of people along the way, you know? Um, so,
I
it's
guess, yeah, okay. That's the best argument that I've been able to come up with against my stances on hunting media. Is the best argument in my mind is, well, Matt, what you don't understand is hunting media brings the polis more enjoyment than hunting itself.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, there was, the writer Michael Pollan. He wrote the
Yeah,
book, Omnivore's Dilemma, and he wrote a
yeah.
book a number of years ago called Cooked. And I
I
remember
haven't read that one.
yeah, it's pretty good. And I think he has a Netflix series around it, which is really well done too. And still remember, it was at this Jewish synagogue down the road from my house. He was doing when the book came out, he was doing a presentation. I went and saw him. And he said in that stand up, which shocked me, he said, the average American watches more cooking shows every week, spends more time watching cooking shows every week than they do cooking.
Wow.
And exactly. And I think you could say in some respects, I think there's a good majority of the people who consume outdoor media, of which your brother's show is a perfect illustration of it. Early days of the show when it was on Netflix, there were many people I would hear talking about it that would watch it, but they weren't going to go hunting themselves, but they were entertained by it. Now, did it also cause some people to go out and start hunting? Sure.
Did it cause a lot of rich people to go lease a huge ranch? Sure.
Yeah.
Just like every other show. It's like there's nothing to me that's like particular to Steve's enterprise in my mind. It all did that. Your stance is interesting because it's like, on one hand, you think that it's important to commune with nature, but on the other hand, you're soft on people want to sit on their ass watching a hunting show.
I'm not soft on it. If they want to do that, that's fine. Here's the thing: if they want to sit on their ass and watch a hunting show, would you have a problem with that? They're not impacting
the I did. That's like what I'm saying. I'm for boycotting hunting media.
But why are you against that person?
I'm against that activity.
But here's the thing, and you and I, who would not want to do that, who are doing the opposite, wanting to be out doing the thing, we want to participate, not observe, would disagree with that. But if somebody wants to do that, there is to your primary premise of your philosophy and all the work you're doing here is the additional strain on the resource. Somebody who does that, I would argue, is actually we're keeping them out of the resource, and they're actually just being lazy sitting on their couch, and that's fine if they don't want to be active out in nature.
Yeah.
But they're not negatively impacting the resource.
To reiterate, if hunting media was a couple of magazines,
but
and not if it was just a couple magazines, my hunting and everybody's hunting would be way better.
Here's I'll take that I'll raise you on that. I mean, if we didn't have social media in this country, in this world right now, how much better off would we be? I believe we would be much better off.
Right.
Societally.
I agree. I mean, everybody's, if you're going to do something if you're going to try to do something for society, like what I'm trying to do, you got to carve something out, and take it on. And sure, I could have started a thing against just like trying to persuade people to get off social media entirely. But usually when somebody picks something to fight on, or fight for, it's usually something they have a history with. Like, and I've been hunting since I was a little tiny kid,
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. I agree that we'd be way better off without social media. It's definitely, I run our Instagram, and it takes a toll on me.
Yeah.
When I post something, I'm refreshing the page every 20 minutes. Oh, how many likes do I get? I'm just like everybody else.
That's why I've checked out of it for last year. Look at the Modern Carnivore account. Like, there's next to nothing over last year. I just pushed out the first podcast in, I think, over 12 months.
Oh, wow.
Yesterday. Just because I got so tired of it, to exactly that point. I think we're all susceptible because it is so well designed to fall into that trap of let's check and see, let's check and see, let's check and see. And I find myself going, I do not like that behavior at all. And so sometimes I just like to walk away from it. And that's where, I have the luxury of doing that when I want to, but it's just it's the reality of where we're at right now. We're not going back, and so I would say we just need to figure out how best to live with it. Unfortunately, the good and the bad.
Yeah, yeah. I know if I wasn't trying to change hunting culture, I'd have no desire to look at it at all.
Yeah, same here. Same here. That's the only thing I do with it. Let me ask you this. You said you asked me back when we talked last time, what gets people interested in hunting? And I think your perspective was the media is what does it, and that's a bad thing versus just sort of a natural curiosity. Do you think media is continuing to do that in the same way, or have things changed for the better or worse in the last 2.5 years since we last talked?
No, I'd say that's about like it's been. Here's the thing with these kinds of questions. The risk for me is that I come out sounding like somebody that's not contemplative. Like, oh, this guy hasn't changed his stance on anything. But do you know how much momentum it takes to like severely compromise relationships with my family, learn how to record and put out podcasts, start social media accounts, start a nonprofit to work on access. These are things that I've never done in my life. I have no history of that. So you have to believe that I was extremely devoted and committed to a set of ideas if I was to go through all the hassle of doing all this. It's not like one of those things where it's like, oh, after I did all that, it turns out I don't believe that after all. Like I change my mind on things all the time. But the amount of the amount of being sure, the amount of certitude it would take in my beliefs that it took me to do all this, they're gonna be pretty hard and fast beliefs. I'm not saying that they couldn't change. It's just if I was going to update my prior distributions, I don't know if you know anything about Bayesian statistics, these priors, the variance on these priors is very small now. It would take a lot of data for them to shift. I don't know if that makes any sense. I'm a Bayesian statistician. That's what I do day in, day out, is Bayesian statistics.
I'm not too familiar with Bayesian statistics. I'm just a marketer media guy. So you do, but again, outside of your world, like just again looking at the independent variable, I'll try to use a statistical
there we go.
term there, right? The independent variable of the media, regardless of whether Matt Ranella is here or not. Have you seen it change in any fundamental ways in recent years, or is it the same today as it was when we last talked?
I guess I'm not the right person to ask because I don't look at it.
Okay, gotcha. And that's where I don't, and that's where I was walking into our conversation, and I was thinking to myself, wow, I haven't really been observing, so I don't know what's going on out there, so I can't comment on it.
People, I become. There's another account that's Copper Plated Sixes. I don't know if you've seen his account.
No.
But he and I seem to play the role of, like, with some people, of the high school principal.
Okay.
People send us heinous content, so I can assure you there is just,
wow.
It's like a competition to post the most disrespectful, graphic, disgusting stuff that you can possibly imagine. So I get that kind of thing sent to me all on a fairly regular basis. But who knows? Maybe there's less of it now than there was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I have people tell me that there's been a tremor in the force. I've even had people tell me there's been a tremor in the force, and that they think it's because of my group's efforts. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't put too much stock in that.
Yeah.
But
well, I mean, you're a voice out there, and bringing the discussion, bringing the topic up, which is good. And that's where, again, with these types of things, like you've said many times, you and I agree to disagree on a lot of issues, but we agree on a lot of others. And I think we need more of that in society these days.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Versus
it's like, I don't know. I'm just kind of a mature person in some respects. I'm sure there's some ways in which I'm not, but like how much warmth I feel towards you, and I feel a lot of it, has nothing to do with us having a difference of opinion on the things we're talking about.
And that's what we're missing in society these days. I mean, just look at our national dialogue. Whew. And that's where I think, the outdoors is a great thing for us to, that's a great universal experience. Again, my perspective on it, we should all connect to the outdoors, and people will connect in different ways, but get your feet dirty, get your hands dirty, whether it's in the park down the road to a city park, to a state WMA, to, a big chunk of federal land.
Oh, yeah, let's stop. Let's just keep it in the park. Can we just keep it in the park?
That's true. We could put little ankle bracelets on people who live in metro areas, and it goes off as soon as they get outside of their perimeter.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else you want to chat about?
Well, I think we covered a lot of them. I think this is good. I think we just got to figure out when we're going to go out hunting sometime. Or fishing.
Yeah. Do you ever come to Montana?
I do. Not often enough, but I do make my way out there. It's one of my favorite states. My wife used to live there. Used to work at the East Glacier East Lodge back in the college days.
Oh, did she go to college in Montana?
No, she went to college in Duluth.
So she just Minnesota. Would come out for the summers.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah.
I would love to host you. I host people my house has people at it all fall.
That's awesome.
I've had people stay at my house to hunt while I was off hunting that I've never even met in person.
That's awesome. That tells you, and what a great example of where again you get a good judge of character even remotely, and if they're a hunter, you're like, okay, yeah, you're good people.
When it comes
come
to
stay miles.
When it comes to material possessions, I don't have a lot. Like, I mean, I'm a federal employee. It's not like I'm some fat cat. I feel so blessed, and I have so much more than I ever dreamed I'd have when I was 19, 18, 20-year-old kid and I was worried about my future, that I just can't, I just have no desire, no ability to deny something that I have to other people.
No, it's very gracious of you. That's we need more. We need more of that in this world, man. That's a beautiful thing.
So yeah, but that was an aside. I would love to have you out.
No, appreciate it. Well,
And
we'll figure out a time to do that.
And
Same back.
if you're ever so inclined, I'll put you in touch with the guys from Minnesota Hunters for Access. I know you got a lot.
Absolutely.
I know you got a lot on your plate. Matter of fact, just in case I've kind of pressured you into it by saying that, I'm only going to put you in touch with them if at some point in the future you remind me to do it.
Okay. Well, I will do that at some point. And why don't we get you out here to Minnesota too? Do something uniquely Minnesotan like spear fishing or
I
wild
ladies and gentlemen, Mark's background is a spear hunt. We're looking down. We're looking down. I'm looking down Mark's spear hole. It's awesome.
Oh yeah,
I love it.
Well, good. Well, I enjoyed the conversation as always.
All right. Yeah. Great chatting with you. Have a good night.
You do the same, Matt.
Okay. Take care.